Nick O'Keefe. We're here to interview Jeff Nolan, the veteran of the current conflict going on in Iraq. Like to tell us a little about yourself and why you joined the United States Army.
Grew up in Connecticut, public high school, small town kind of kid. Joined when I was 17. I was still in high school. Joined the reserves, Army. Spent my entire senior year going to weekend drills, 1 weekend a month kind of thing you see in commercials. Did it for a lot of things. I think this is the best country in the world. I want to be, something that help continue that. Kind of an adventure seeker. Really want to get in the whole running around, whole the adventure scene, thrills and all that kind of stuff.
And what were you doing before this service?
I was a high school student. I went right out of high school. I left for basic 2 weeks after I graduated.
What branch did you join?
Army Reserve. Still am. Got about a year left. Making up my mind if I want to keep going or not.
And how did your parents feel about that?
They were, we had to talk about it for a while at the beginning. They supported me. They just really wanted to get all the information, talk to the recruiters, do some research. My mom took a little bit of convincing, but she completely supports me.
And when did you do your basic training?
Fort Leonard, Missouri, 2003.
I mean, depending on how things, go over there, better or for worse, would that affect your decision to resign?
Basically, anybody who's been in or is seriously considering going in knows that if they're in, they're going to go somewhere at this point. The way the world is pretty much right now, we have soldiers all over the world at all times. So, you know going in that you're probably going to go somewhere.
Do you have any interesting stories about basic training?
Basic is an experience that you kind of have to go through to really get the whole thing. One day you're miserable, and the next day it's the funnest thing you've ever done. If you like going outside and sleeping in the mud and obstacle courses and all that, you have fun times, and then there's a day that you're cleaning the bathroom for the 10th time that week, and you're like, man, this really sucks. But it goes back and forth. Looking back on it, there's a lot of stuff that you can find, funny, and drill sergeants are the funniest people on earth as long as they're not yelling at you.
And what was your military occupation?
I have two. When I originally enlisted, I was a signals interceptor. I basically did counter radar, use computer monitoring equipment to locate radar systems, and then pass those along to pilots who would be flying in the area so they'd be aware of the anti-aircraft missiles that they could be going against. But when I went to Iraq, I was functioning as an interrogator. I was the assistant team leader on an interrogation and intelligence collection team. Basically, during the day, we would go out in small groups, we meet with the Iraqi locals, talk to their business people, police forces, people on the street, basically kind of get information on what was going on, who the bad guys are, where they were doing, what was going on, general consensus of the people towards Americans, all sorts of different stuff. And then in addition to that, I conduct interrogations of detainees, POWs, anybody that we thought had information that could help us. We could do that either in a detention facility, a prison, or in the field on the raid. Go out with infantry guys, and kick doors and arrest people. I'd be right behind them asking questions.
So how was the locals' attitude towards your presence coming into the town?
A lot. There was a lot that didn't like you. There was a lot that didn't care. That's pretty much what it was. There's a population that likes us being there. It was more that we eliminated the former government. I think it's changing, but we're okay. This is an Islamist country. We want Islamic rulers. You're not Islamic. You need to move on. But there is an appreciation in some parts of the population, but they don't go out and show it as much as the people who don't like us.
Right.
They kind of keep their mouth shut.
Can you kind of tell us a little bit about, the scenario that's going on between insurgents and, just, regular people in Iraq? What's the story with that?
There's a lot going on, more than the media displays. You have basically two kinds of people: the people who don't care who's running the country, and the people who want to run it for their own benefit. So you have guys that appreciated when Saddam was around because the lights were working, and there was they had water, they had plumbing, all the services worked, even though they kind of looked the other way when the bad stuff happened. But so it's kind of, people are unsure of how the new government's going to function out because they haven't experienced anything else. It's a complete total change. They don't really know what's going on. So you have insurgents fighting for their own way, and then a lot of confused general population about, well, I don't really know what's going on. So they're very can easily persuade them either way. Well, we promise we're going to make things better, and then the insurgents are going, well, we're going to make things better our way. And the insurgents are their people, so they go with their religious ties, or their family ties to tribal nation. They have me, family, tribe, than everybody else. So they have a lot of different factions pulling at their attention about how they're going to support it and what they're going to support.
And how did you feel during the firefights?
No, you're not. If you got trained right, it kicks in. You're not really feeling anything, or thinking about anything. You do what has to get done. It's only later that you can actually come back and think about it, which you try not to, but it's unavoidable. I don't know. It bothered me some a little bit.
You want to tell us a little about the technology that we have compared to what the insurgents have?
Obviously, we're operating on vast different levels of technology. Certain things I can't get into due to sensitivity, equipment and use. Basically, they're working with whatever they can dig out of their basement. They are getting armed supplies from outside sources of basically, mostly old artillery shells and explosives, which they then piece together with cell phones, electronics, consumer electronics to make bombs. They have a lot of small arms, RPGs, Soviet era stuff, AK-47s, that kind of things. It's not well maintained, it's not reliable, but they make do with it. I mean, obviously they're making, they're putting up a fight, they're making some kind of impact with it. The big transition for the Army was preparing to fight an enemy that was similarly armed as us, conventional tactics, tanks, big formations, big units, to finding the guy in the crowd that's going to throw a grenade in your truck as you're driving by and disappear. They have to rely more on tactics than on technology. It's when you're driving through a city, you drive down the street like Huntington Ave, basically their equivalent, and then pick the guy out of the crowd that just pushes a button or throws something at you, and he's down an alley, and then you're still trying to figure out what's going on, and that's the fight. It's over. You don't even get the fire shot back. He's gone. So we have come up with some technologies to fight it. There are devices that can help prevent IEDs, detonations, using signal jamming, and we're using some electronics to defeat their low-level stuff, but it's not perfect.
Speaking of your most desperate moment on the battlefield.
We're not really into that.
How are the conditions in the desert?
It's hot. I mean, they say it's hot. It's hotter than you think. The day I arrived in Kuwait, it was 136 degrees. And you're not in your flip-flops and beach shorts. It's boots, long pants, long sleeves,
right.
And then
60 pounds a year.
A kit that weighs anywhere from 45 to 80 or 90 pounds, and a helmet, gloves, glasses. And you get used to it, but it hits you. And I say it's a dry heat, but which actually helps a little bit, but as soon as you think about going outside, you start sweating.
Yeah.
Luckily now there's enough infrastructure. We've been there long enough. We have built up facilities that there's air conditioning and shade. The guys that were there, in the first days they really had to sweat it out. We got a little bit better. But you got, you're drinking 4 or 5 liters of water a day. Bathrooms are open air or porta potties, and a porta potty stinks when it's 140 degrees out. I think the record when I was there was 152 in August.
Constantly drinking water.
Constantly.
Not even stopping.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's obviously that hot in the day. What about at night? The temperatures really drop?
At night, in the summer, it'll get down to 90, and you'll be out going, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
In the winter, it does get cold. I was on the north central area in the mountains, so 30 days where it get down to the 30s. And at night, you know, if you were out, you'd have to put like an Under Armour sweater on underneath if you weren't moving around. But it snows in some regions. There's a monsoon season, January, February, March, where it will rain enough in a week that the streets will flood because they have no drainage, because they don't need it 10 months of the year. So there was times we'd be driving down the main drag in the city and the water would be up to the headlights on the Humvee. And there'd be people boating together, like in a canoe, getting around the streets. And that happens every year.
Yeah.
But everything just turns to mud. So, you know, you got your little area, you try to pick things, and you just track it, endless amounts of sand and mud.
Pulling Humvees out a lot?
Yeah, we actually got stuck in the mud once so bad that we needed a helicopter to come sling us out. They lowered a helicopter over it, it was hovering, dropped the big chain down, hooked it up to the truck and pulled it out.
Do you think every American should have at least 2 years in the military?
I think every American should want to volunteer for 2 years. But there's obviously people who don't. There's obviously people who can't physically or mentally handle it. And putting people who don't want to be there, who can't be there, is just going to make it worse. You know, you got kids that volunteer because they wanted college money or whatever the recruiter promised them, and they find out they hate it, and now they're dragging everybody else around now because they don't want to be there.